Guys, I think that on October the 12th, it's going to be very interesting to look at this game against LSU versus Ole Miss. I think by this time, between the both schools, at worst, maybe LSU is 4-1 going into this game. At worst, in my humble opinion, maybe they slip up to either one of the USCs, the one on the East Coast or the West Coast. I don't know. But on October the 12th, I do believe that both teams are going to be undefeated because I still think that you can pull it out against USC. It scares me, though. 50-50. Don't play with them. We've talked about them. South Carolina being at 11 a.m., I like that. UCLA, South Alabama, Nichols, you're both going to be undefeated at night in Death Valley in Tiger Stadium for Ole Miss versus LSU. You know that in the beginning of real true SEC play coming into October, that ESPN and ABC is going to want to get their investment and put LSU versus Ole Miss at night in Tiger Stadium. I'll be blown away if it's at 2:30. Absolutely, positively blown away, especially after what happened last year. And you could get an undefeated Ole Miss in prime time at night in Death Valley. It's what I think. I don't know. I'm giving a hypothetical of it being at night. Does it really change at 2:30? A little, not a lot, though. Being the away team, not in that game, it will not be. But I look at Ole Miss. Look, man, I think that you could make the argument that of all of the teams that LSU play on this 2024 schedule, that Ole Miss potentially could have the most overall talent than anybody. And yes, that includes Alabama. Yes, that includes Oklahoma. Yes, that does include USC. Guys, Ole Miss might be not only might be, but probably is the most talented team on paper that you face. And they're pretty well coached. So a lot of people have thought, because they've gone in the portal the way that they have, that Ole Miss might just be a flop. They might continue to do what they always do. Well, they might lose to Georgia. Well, Georgia's very well prepared. Yeah, I do agree with you that Georgia's probably going to beat them. But Georgia has more talent than they do. All across the line of scrimmage and board. At least we think so. Guys, I look at what they have coming back and what they had addition-wise offensively. Adding a guy like Juice Wells from South Carolina, now was hurt last year, didn't play. And some people are like, well, you didn't see him play last year. Well, we saw him play as a freshman. Yeah, I think the kid can play. Trey Harris is back. Jordan Watkins is back. Guys, against a very young secondary, even though this is going into game 5 of the season, this can be and has the potential to be a very scary unit for you. Guys, Watkins was one of the players last year that busted all wide up in your ass, no pause. So was Trey Harris. They got a lot of really good pieces back. Oh, and they added a guy that was very explosive in 2022 in Juice Wells. And it's going to be very interesting to see how Lane Kiffin, of all play callers, utilizes him offensively. But they have a quarterback that, guys, by the time that he plays you in Baton Rouge and Jackson Dart, is going to have well over and close to 15, maybe on the extreme end, or 1,200 total, passing attempts in college football. Do you understand how many that is? Do you understand how much experience Jackson Dart has, not only being a quarterback at his first year at USC, but the multiple years that he's been at Ole Miss, another year with Lane Kiffin? Guys, I know that Jackson Dart has been looked at as a guy that's, yeah, he's okay. He's good. Is he great? Well, last year, Jackson Dart completed about 65% of his passes, threw for about 3,400 yards, had 23 touchdowns, but he mitigated turnovers, man, with only 5. Oh, and by the way, he ran for another 8 touchdowns. You should remember how good Jackson Dart was last year. He absolutely ate you alive. Now, is he going to do it again? Can he develop? Is he going to be better? Can he take that next step? That is a question mark that everybody has about him. But guys, historically, when a quarterback that's got that many passing attempts, 1,200 in his career, 1,200 of them, that's a very not good combo when you have a young secondary and you are unproven, let's just be honest, along your defensive line as well. Name somebody that's very proven as an every down starter along your defensive line. You got Savion Jones. That's about it. You don't know. I look at some of the pieces that they brought on the offensive line. You know, if you go and listen to Ole Miss during the spring, a lot of the chatter was, look, man, I mean, Ole Miss, they got some dudes up front. Now, they're not going to be great. They're not going to be like yours, but they got some guys that can play, and it's not going to be a massive issue for them. It's not their glaring weakness. Those guys can play. What their real weakness is, I believe, or could be, at running back. They've taken more portal running backs than anyone. Logan Diggs is going to be out. I mean, they got so many backs in there. I have no idea who is just going to be the dude because Lane will rotate those guys in and out of there. But they got a lot of them. They got a lot of experience. You know, what's interesting, you pretty much know and feel what you're going to get from a Lane Kiffin style of offense because he's always going to be doing it. That's not what scares me, though. 2, because them offensively scares the bejesus out of me. I don't know if you can stop them, if I'm being honest. Let's see if you can. Let's see if you can make adjustments. But the last time I saw you against them, I don't know where you upgraded. Now, I think that you've gotten better at areas. DC, linebacker, safety. I don't know anywhere else. But, man, the guys that they brought in from the portal legitimately are what scares the shit out of me. A lot of people said and questioned Walter Nolan having low production, which I don't really buy or believe. I think that that's BS because I think he was around a lot of really talented defensive linemen. He was not the only one. He was being double teamed a lot, not asked to do a lot when he was the one that of that nasty defensive line that Texas A&M had last year. He was the one that they game planned around. That's why Walter Nolan was so big when he hit the portal. But even though he was double teamed a lot, which you did, he still had 4 sacks. You add Prince Yellen, who has 7. You have other defensive linemen that you have added. Oh, by the way, Chris Paul Jr., not that kind of Chris Paul, but Chris Paul Jr., who was the really good linebacker from Arkansas, well, he adds to the mix. Guys, they added in 3 players 22 total sacks. Now, you have a really good offensive line to combat that. And I think that you can. But, man, it's going to be a really good battle. Thought Emory Jones absolutely just abused Yellen last year. Like, Walter Nolan, I mean, I think that you can beat them up front. What I'm not sure about is, guys, they got some really good dudes on the corner. They got some really good dudes on the boundary. They are a really well put together defense. Let's talk about Trey Amos. Guys, Alabama had 2 first-round corners last year, and when Kool-Aid McKinstry, who's now with the Saints, got hurt, Trey Amos came in, a guy that you really wanted in the transfer portal in 22, comes in, and do y'all remember what he did against Georgia? The play before the end of the game, batting the ball down, coming up with a big break up on the slant. And a lot of people are saying he could be a first-round potential talent. Guys, now Trey Amos, who is at Ole Miss because of what they did at the portal and what they did in the portal, a guy that could have been in your program, who could have started for you at corner, which you desperately needed. Desperately needed. He's going to be going up against Kyron Lacey, your best receiver. Oh, and that's not the only one, because Isaiah Hamilton, the kid from Houston from a year ago, it's not like he was a bad cover corner. He had 4 picks on the boundary. And sometimes being used in the slot. It's the most, I can't believe I'm going to say this, I think it's the most talented team that you play. And it's going to be a grudge match. I know good and damn well people are like, Blake has lost his godforsaken mind that he thinks that Ole Miss on paper might be the most talented team that LSU faces. I get it. I know. Trust me, good Lord, I know. Guys, they got a lot. They have a lot of on paper starting talent.